And she streams live as we speak, periscope.com, Facebook, and she pops up on YouTube a little later on. And how are you doing, Kimberly?
How's it going, Chuck?
All right, you are on Facebook, are you not?
Yes, I am. I just hit live. I'm sorry. There was a second delay there, but I'm on live now.
Okay, I'll be checking that out here in a minute, see where you pop up. And, yeah. Hey, listen, I know you were exposing Iran's secret weapons trafficking program. I saw that report, and I figure you're probably going to talk about Syria again, possibly using poisonous gas. Seems like they just haven't quite figured out, you don't mess around with Trump. Do you agree with that, Kimberly?
Well, yeah, I agree that countries are learning that they shouldn't necessarily mess with the United States in general, but until we get the reports back on chemicals being used, we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know if it's the Russians that are using this to grab the Americans and draw them into more of a war. We don't know if it's Assad. We don't know if it's Al-Qaeda, because as you know, most of the jihadis groups are inside Syria fighting for Syria. And so we just don't really know. I'd like to see the president kind of hold back and get, a little more, information as to who's really dropping the chemical weapons. Because again, we've seen in the past, and it has happened in the past, that other entities that have something to gain, like the Russians or the jihadis, Al-Qaeda and what have you, they have a lot to gain by the United States going after the Assad regime and weakening that country even more. So I just think that everybody needs to slow down. And I mean, when you look at these scenarios, who really is going to gain with this? And Assad has nothing to gain by doing something like this. So I'm sitting on the fence, looking through it. It could be anybody at this point.
Well, the latest report I have is, the Pentagon is crafting military operation. Trump hasn't decided what exactly would trigger a military response on whether the U.S. would target Russia or Iranian military forces aiding Assad in Syria. And, they say that for, let's see here, Russia and Syria have stepped up their airstrikes. That's kind of bad at the very beginning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you've got going here is it's a cauldron. I mean, we've seen the Middle East, over the last 20 years. It's a cauldron of everybody trying to get in the mix here. And you have to step back and look at, there are people that want to get America engaged in this war in Syria. And I just don't think that this president was elected to go to war in Syria. We're certainly watch him, backing the Iranian people over the Iranian government. And you have to think too that it's the Iranians that are really, really, inside that country, and they're really doing. I mean, this could very possibly be the Iranians dropping something like this. They have that capability as well. So this is something to draw the United States president and draw the United States military into another conflict. I'm hoping that cooler heads prevail, and we take a look at what is really going on and who's actually behind the chemical or alleged chemical drops that are going on right now by barrel bomb.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see Bolton, his address today, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but I was just wondering if he brought that up at all.
He did. He said that the U.S. is looking at it. He's pushing the president. Bolton, as a national security advisor, he is more than happy to go to war in the Middle East with any country. I kind of have a little bit different philosophy on Bolton. We have to be very careful. We've been at war over there for the last 16, 17 years, and the American people have kind of said enough. So I think we really need to take our time with this, make sure we figure out who did this, and if it was Iran, then or the Russians, and that's where the ramifications by the U.S. military need to go to, whoever committed this atrocity.
Definitely do not need a hair trigger, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then as we come up on our break here, Kimberly, I'm going to ask you about Vice President Pence. If you've heard any reactions from him, if he's getting involved at all. My guest, Kimberly Dvorak, CW6 News San Diego, One American News Network, and you can get all her good stuff and all her reports at thekdreport.com. That's thekdreport.com, and we'll be right back. President Bashar al-Assad of Syria has approved, they say, the use of chlorine gas in an offensive against the country's last major rebel stronghold. And Trump says he hasn't decided what he exactly would trigger a military response, or whether the U.S. would target Russia or Iranian military forces, adding that Assad in Syria, aiding, that is, Assad in Syria. And we mentioned Ambassador Bolton. Have you heard anything out of the Vice President, Ken?
I think the vice president is really the closest person to Donald Trump. I think that he's, advising the Trump, President Trump on this issue. This is information that will change minute to minute. We have very capable people over at the Pentagon that are tracking this information, and we have very good intelligence agencies that are inside and on the ground over there. So, there's a lot of communication that needs to be had, and the communication between the White House and these intelligence sources is ongoing. We have not heard anything necessarily new. Looking back at the Trump presidency so far, he's not going to notify anyone that he's going to strike anybody. He's not going to say on 6 p.m. tomorrow we're going to strike and retaliate for the use of this. And like I said, that this is kind of a boiling point right now, and you're seeing I would be very not surprised, I guess I should say, if we look to see where this came from, and it most likely came from the Iranians. They're on their heels. They're about to go through a regime change. Their people are fighting every single day in the streets, protesting, trying to get regime change. And you're seeing the sanctions are having a very heavy effect on the people there. But not only that, they're really, really squashing a lot of the extra money that the Iranian government's having. And we know that they're, supporting Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations. And that we also have learned that over the last few weeks that they have increased their political sway inside Syria. So my guess, if we had to look at it, this is coming from Iran. They don't have anything to lose right now. The regime, the people of Iran are completely different, but they don't have anything to lose right now.
Well, just recently you filed a report exposed Iran's secret weapons trafficking program.
Yeah.
And apparently they're smuggling arms into Lebanon, right?
Yeah. Well, they're getting it directly to the hands of the Hezbollah, which is just another terrorist organization. And they're using this was actually really good, diligent intelligence reporting by our intel community, being able to look at satellite images to see where planes were coming and going from, and they were able to determine that there are planes coming directly from Iran going to Lebanon using these really out of the way flight paths and trying to blend into the environment, like maybe look like they're a commercial airliner per se. But again, our intelligence community is really good at getting this stuff out, and they actually have been flying weapons out of Iran and into other countries to increase their political sway in the Middle East. Again, the regime is really reaching its straws here because they are coming under a credible amount of pressure from the people at home in Iran.
Let me remind the listener that this report, you can see it at theadreport.com. Two things, all right, because I don't want to lose my line of thought, but what you just said is they're coming under a lot of pressure, okay, from the protests. But are the protesters saying, hey, lay off of all your military activities, become better guys, nicer guys? Could you explain that to me?
Yeah.
Why they're under that pressure?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the young people in Iran, and it's for our listeners that have listened to this, we know that the average age is about 31 years old, and these are young people that want to be able to use the internet, go to nightclubs, take their kids to soccer games, and be able to travel to the West. They ally themselves much more with the West than anybody realizes. Now you've got these people that are, severe poverty. I mean, the sanctions have really taken a toll on Iran. So the people of Iran have been demanding that the regime end any kind of funding of terrorist activities, because they're seeing that they're going through a severe man-made drought. I mean, they've got, their double-digit index on all of their consumer goods. People are starting to go hungry, and you're starting to see the country start to kind of crumble under Trump's, heavy-duty sanctions, and he is going to go after this more. And you're starting to see the EU, who was hesitant at first to kind of get out of the Iranian deal that the previous administration put forth, but now you're seeing companies inside Germany saying, well, we're going to stick with the U.S. on this. Companies in France, we're going to stick with the U.S. So that creates a lot more pressure for the regime inside Iran. And they're, when you corner, rats, so to speak, they kind of lash out. And I think that's what you're seeing. And definitely, they've got, again, when you look at, certain things happening when it comes to war, you see, dictators rise, or you see the people kind of come out and push and get rid of a, illegitimate government. They're always looking for an external threat. They're always looking for something to unite their people inside that country. And Iran is trying to unite their people, saying the U.S. they hate us, and they're going to bomb us, and they're going to get rid of us as a nation altogether. But these young people that are running this revolution currently, they understand that the regime is out of, there's not much money left. Whatever money they have, they're spending on terrorism, and they would gain if the U.S. got involved in Syria and did massive airstrikes and boots on the ground. The Iranians would definitely be the ones that would benefit from something like that. So they're trying to egg the U.S. They're trying to get the U.S. into the situation. And I think that's what the viewers and listeners at home need to kind of keep in mind, that, this is the Iranian regime that's, really operating on its last legs here. And that's why I think we're going to see, hopefully, a reserved U.S. military kind of wait and get all of the intel that they need, so they can go after the appropriate person who did drop these barrel bombs inside Syria.
Yeah, I find it interesting, they want to do the things, the soccer games, go to the soccer games, and dances and dress and listen to the right kind of music and all this stuff. And it's the same thing that people are doing here, even though we've been involved 17 years in a war. But see, they don't have that 4.2% GDP or a duly elected president like Trump. No. Let me ask you this. I think you and I talked a long time ago when it first happened. Obama gave them the billions and billions of dollars, which supposedly, I guess, belonged to the government, but was supposed to be dispersed to the people. So, Kimberly, I'm pretty sure that it's all going to the war effort, right?
Exactly. That you're seeing this money. It's actually flip-flop. This money was actually money that the U.S. government kind of it was in U.S. financial institutions, and they froze the accounts. So the majority of that money was actually owned by Iranian businesses and people who had accounts overseas. So when the money was supposed to go back, the Iranian regime promised that they were going to let this go to the people and the rightful owners of this money. And then, of course, what they did is when they came in, they impounded it, and now they've been using that for their war effort. And they're using that through the Quds Force, and you're seeing Soleimani, who runs the Quds Force there, you're seeing him dash back and forth to Iraq, and they're playing a bigger role. They're trying to play a bigger role in the Middle East. And I think that, they really just need to stir up trouble. That's what they're trying to do here, because they realize this is about done. I mean, we're seeing what's going on in North Korea, and we're seeing what's going on in Syria, and the United States is going to, get ourselves away from these, PowerPoints where we don't need to be involved in these regions per se. And President Trump has really been forward and said, look, we want to bring peace. We want to bring our troops home. And I know that's kind of the antithesis for some of the people that, really advocate, but that's the president. That's what he promised.
In your report, you also said that they had found Iranian weapon factories. Western intelligence sources were reporting that. Also uncovered the unexpected routes that Iran apparently took to try to avoid detection. Yeah. When you say Western intelligence, I think most people would say, oh, America's doing a good job on that. Does that include intelligence too?
Yeah, this is Five Eyes. Like generally, intelligence could be coming from Britain, could be coming from France, could be coming from Australia. Doubtful for Australia; it's pretty far away. But yeah, it's coming from allies. We're getting information, and you're also getting information inside Iran from people who are working inside those facilities, who are realizing that regime change is coming, and that's why you're seeing a lot of this information that we haven't been able to get to for the past several years, because now they're realizing they want to be on the right side of the revolution. And if they kind of expose some of the stuff that's going on, that they believe that, at least when the revolution, takes place, that they will have a place in the new government, whatever that may be inside Iran. So you're starting to see intelligence we're starting to get more information out from people that are inside prisons, where we just had several, political prisoners executed this past weekend in Iran. So you're starting to see people decide that they want to be on the right side of this. So we're going to start seeing more of this, and it's like a snowball. So it's kind of like going down the hill, it catches up steam, and we're going to see more of this. And you and I have talked about this. I think it's going to culminate by February. We're going to see that regime change. But it's important for people to think, especially when you're looking at the geopolitical, stance inside that Middle East, that it's a power play for everybody. All of these different countries would love to sway what's going on in Syria. Syria is a very big country. It was a Western country that used to have McDonald's and colleges, and now there's nothing left of the country. But you need to, that there's something to be had there, and this is why Assad's going into Idlib, and this is the final stronghold for the Assad regime. Maybe the final thing. You just don't know in this. The country has been almost completely obliterated. It's very sad, very tragic, kind of like Libya.
Yeah, I don't know how many months ago it was, but remember when Israel sent their SNAP spy team in there, and they got all that secret information. I mean, it was an unbelievable cache of goodies that they got out of there. And I was wondering how much that played into this intelligence report, because I still wonder on these Iranian weapon factories, surely they're disguising them. They just wouldn't be out in the open, I don't think. But
no, they don't. They don't necessarily, but things like that, the U.S. knows where we know where all of their nuclear weapon, chemical manufacturing plants of that nature. We know where all that stuff is. Our intelligence is pretty good about that. So, we know where that stuff is. But I don't think that we really have the hard evidence that they were actually, manufacturing these weapons and then getting them, to other terrorist organizations. And with the pressure building inside the country, we're starting to get that information out, because I really believe that there are a lot of people, they really want to have a place in the next government. And if they're on the wrong side of this regime change, they will not have any kind of power in a new government, and their lives could actually be in danger because they were maybe higher up within the military inside Iran.
I wonder, Kimberly, put in your crystal ball here, how many of those far lefties are saying, well, I bet they weren't doing anything whenever we had that, and it wasn't a treaty. We got to make sure when they signed that piece of paper with Obama and John Kerry, I bet they weren't doing anything. I bet they were just so nice and they weren't spying on anybody or smuggling all these weapons. Yeah. Or maybe a lot of this came back even when they were following the, what would you call that? The Obama, here's my IOU or something?
Yeah. Well, I think that, the Iranians they were lucky. They kind of took the U.S. to the woodshed on this Iranian deal. There was never any really, hard sanctions set in place to, kind of slowly, put the money back into their economy and make sure that they were going to, abandon their nuclear weapons program and those type of things. And they, this weekend we saw John Kerry come out and talk on the morning shows, Sunday morning programs about, the Iran deal and how it was, and he's still saying that was a great deal. And, it's really the problems there now are because Trump is messing things up, so to speak. And apparently Trump doesn't understand what America is all about. And, I actually tweeted a little thing, and I guess that's why he's president. But we leave that aside. But I think that you're seeing the establishment left, that they too are also watching their political clout kind of fall by the wayside as the Democrats move even further left towards these midterms. And I think that when you see someone like John Kerry come out and explain that, he ran for president himself, and he's seen that, he says President Trump doesn't know what America's all about. Well, I didn't know that America was about war. I didn't know that America was about, funding money to countries that don't have our best interests at heart.
I'd still like for Kerry or Obama to clear up the discrepancy, because Kerry somebody said, how come you're not talking about releasing the prisoners over there when you and Obama are trying to strike this deal? And Kerry said, we bring it up every day. And Obama said, we can't bring it up because that would ruin the treaty.
Yeah.
So one of them was lying. When we come back, I want to find out about this rare air flight from Tehran to an airport in Beirut. Kimberly Dvorak, and it's thekdreport.com, CW6 News San Diego and America News Network. We shall return. CRN, Chuck Wilder, with my guest, Kimberly Dvorak. And in your report here, the one Iran secret weapons trafficking program exposed, you said that two sources identified two rare and unusual, and I'm not sure if it's Qasem Bars airline flights or air flights from Tehran to the international airport in Beirut in the past couple of months. Tell us the significance of all of this.
Well, I think the significance of this is that we see that the Iranian government is looking at this and saying, whether we're going to do it covertly, we're going to do it covertly, and we're going to try to cover our tracks. So I think what this shows is that the U.S. intelligence community is able to look at the satellite imagery from above and determine that these particular flights, they're coming out on a regular basis as well. It's our understanding that that they're not deterred by pressure from the West to kind of end their meddling in Syria and other places in the Middle East, like Yemen right now. That they're actually probably a lot of those weapons are ending up in Yemen in that civil war that is killing an awful lot of civilians there. So I mean, I think again, it's this geopolitical schism goes on in the Middle East. It always comes down to the Shia versus the Al Qaeda and the Sunnis in all of this. And when you're looking at the tribalism that the region actually is mostly about, you kind of see that power structure, one usually becomes stronger than the other. And they want to grab whatever the power is left in the region. And right now, with the best thing that the United States is doing, I think, and this is another thing that Trump has really done really well at, we're weaning ourselves off their oil over there. We're exporting our oil from here now. So as the world does not need the oil out of the Middle East, they're going to become even less of a significant player on the world stage. And so you're seeing the different countries over there kind of fight because they realize that it's diminishing returns on any kind of power structure there. And I think this is why you're seeing the Iranian people so successfully launch a peaceful, relatively peaceful uprising in Iran to force regime change.
It's so great that we have all this oil and gas production now. I guess the setback to that is the Suez Canal, because now all the other countries depend upon the Suez Canal, and I think it was something like 60% has to go through there because they're getting it from other places that they don't get it from America. And amazing, the Suez Canal, boy, I remember a long time, a million years when I was in the Navy, we had to run down there for something or the other. So
always,
wow.
It's always fought on the water.
I'm not a Marine, I'm sorry. That's why she never invites me to go golfing, is because I don't have a stripe down my leg like the Marines do. And,
I'm kind of partial to them, I won't lie.
They stand down there by the 13th hole or whatever, the 7th hole, and you see that stripe, and it helps you when you're teeing off.
Yeah.
I know.
Right straight down the middle.
You're doing a lot of golfing and great courses, really nice looking ones there, Kimberly.
Yeah.
And so, and sorry I didn't hook up with you on Facebook again. I don't know what the problem is on
Yeah.
that, but
I'm streaming
we're
live,
actually
so
getting everything squared away. I'm sorry.
it's streaming live. I'm seeing myself right now. I'm waving now.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you didn't say don't let him in anymore, did you?
Did I block you? Oh my gosh, maybe I did. I don't know.
Yeah, should be. All right. Well, it's the KD Report, last resort, thekdreport.com. Thank you very much, Kimberly.
All right,
and look
guys.
forward to the next visit.
Thank you.
All right, Kimberly Dvorak, DVORA.